In this short video, we're going to discuss functional components. Functional components are components that are made from functions, not classes. They don't have state and are really meant for very simple components. Which isn't to say you couldn't use a complex one, but generally speaking, these are probably going to be small. So you can do it by doing something like this. So here we have a function called a component, and you can see that it returns some JSX. So we can go down here, and there it is. It's now a component. Now, functional components are different from class-based components in a few ways. There's the obvious that they are just made up of a function. Very important for this is that they don't have state, which I already mentioned, and everything, all data is communicated to them through props, which means they can have events on them, but you don't define the events within the component. They will be passed in as props, and any data will be, generally speaking, passed in as props. Other than that, they're essentially components. If you have a small piece of user interface that you want to render, then this is a good choice for those. Like if you go back a few videos to where we extracted a user list whenever we were building the GitHub repo search or user search, that would have actually been a really good time to use a functional component. And so let's create another functional component, but this time I'm going to create it in a separate file so you can see that they can be exported just like normal components. So another functional component. Actually, I don't even need to import React here. Actually, let's don't. I actually do think I do need to, but we'll see. Functional component. Props. So whenever you pass in props to these components, they will come here. You won't, in the component, do anything like this.props.text. There is no this, because this is not an instance of an object. This is a function. In the case of these functional components, we would reference props, but we would get it from being passed in right there. So let's use this in the other file. Oops, left out a piece. So another functional component, let's go bring it in. All right, so here's that error I was mentioning where I am going to need to bring in React, and here we go. Line 4, React must be in scope when using JSX. Okay. I'm not entirely sure why that is the case. I believe it is because when this is transformed from JSX into regular JavaScript to run, it will be making calls to things in the React library. So if I recall correctly, or if my logic is sound, I think that's what's going on and why this is that way. So now we should compile. Cool. So I can take another functional component and put it in here. And I defined some props here for text. Right now the component should be here, but we just don't see it because there's no text. Now we should see it. There it is. So whenever we included this functional component in. This attribute here and this is put into props so that we can get to props.text to get that piece of information and display it here. So that's the basic idea behind functional components. If you want more information, go to the React documentation, and if you look at the components and props lesson, it's right here at the very top, functional and class components. And so it shows you a few distinctions between them. And so generally speaking, I use class components most often, but these can be nice and tidy. If you just have a render function, think of it this way. If you have a component and you can get away with just having a render function, usually functional components will do just fine for you. You won't need the other. Alright, that's it. That's functional components. Use them.